Welcome to Blender Frenzy. I am Justin, and today we are making another custom transition with geometry nodes. So we've got our animation here, this first wipe transition, and then we have these inputs here where we can change a whole bunch of things. We can change the number of spheres. We can change the radius of the spheres to make them smaller or larger. We can change the fall off to make that sharper or more smooth. And then we can even make it random here, to where they scale all at random times, and we can change the random scale up or down, and we can even choose the swipe direction, so we can change swipe side or swipe up. Then what we do is render them out and add them to some videos here that I downloaded from Pixabay, and this is what we use for the transitions, and that's what it looks like in the final edit. And here's the final node setup if you just want to take a screenshot and work from this directly. I spent a lot of time in the last video going over geometry nodes and how to create certain transitions and then importing those into the VSE. So I'll leave a link to that if you want to check it out. But this video uses the same concepts as that video, and if you're familiar with geometry nodes, you'll be able to follow along just fine. So when you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so let's open up a new instance of Blender. I am using 4.5.2 apparently. I guess that's just updated because I was using 0.1 yesterday. So let's go to geometry nodes, and I'm just going to collapse this. I don't need that, and we're going to create new. I also want to delete my light here just before I forget. I don't need the light. And then select this. I'm going to pin my geometry nodes, and I'm going to just add in a grid like before, and we'll Alt-Shift click. In material nodes, you can Control-Shift and click to connect these. If you Control-Shift and click here, then it'll use the viewer, and I don't want that. So Alt-Shift and click will connect it to the output. Okay, so let's get the size going here. And I'm just going to do 10 and 10 for that. And then I'm going to add in an icosphere, and then an instance on points, and then use this for the instance. And then we can scale either down here like this, or scale the radius down. I'm actually going to leave the radius at 1. I am going to increase the subdivisions to 3 though, I think, and I'm going to get the material going here. Set material node, and I don't know why, but the first time I do the set material node in geometry nodes, it just takes forever on my computer. There we go. And let's also just make this an emission with a completely white shader. I'm also going to name this white. Let's also go to render, color management, and change this to standard, rendered mode here. And before I change the background to black, I'm going to do the rest of the nodes. I'll do the black last. But here, if we disable the overlays, we can see if we adjust the scale, this is what we have. But now we need our proximity object, and we can just add in an empty. And I'm going to choose the sphere, and that's going to be here. Let's go back to solid shaded mode for just a second. I could bring this in like this to use it for the proximity, but because this doesn't actually have any geometry, I could either click Add as Instance, and then I think that would work with the geometry proximity, if I can say that right, proximity. Here we go. And then plug that in here, and then we'll put the distance into the scale. Instances and input geometry are ignored. Okay, maybe it's not instance, maybe I have to do relative. That makes this go away. Let's change this to points. And then we need to add in our map range node here. And mess with the scale here. That does not seem to be working. Let's try faces again. It is also not working. Oh, I think it needs to be location anyway. Okay, so yeah, so this isn't really working. Let's add a mesh line here. And this is a tip that I got from Ducky 3D, basically we want the empty to be tied to some sort of geometry which is generated within the geometry nodes here. So this mesh line is not out here, it's actually in here, just like the grid and the icosphere are. You can already see something is happening. So the count, I'm just going to bring that down to 1 because we don't actually want a line or a few points, we just want 1 point. So now we got the location in the start location put into the geometry, and then now you can see that this, if we adjust our map range to the from minimum and maximum and to minimum and maximum. I don't actually know like mathematically how these work. I'm more of an artist, so I just kind of look to see what kind of result I get. So in top mode here, we get this result with these settings. And so I just tweak it until I find the one that I'm looking for. And so essentially what I want to do is have all of the spheres be at a scale of 0 when this is directly in the center. And then the further away it moves, then I want them to be at their normal starting scale, which is 1 meter, which should cover this whole thing in white. So with this in the middle, let's just find that setting. Again, I'm not entirely sure how that will work. There we go. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Oh, okay, nope. Actually, if I put this up, let's put this to 50 for now, and then pull this down. Yeah, something like that. So then the further I go this way, but I have to go quite a ways away there. Maybe I can bring this down to 20? Okay, yeah, and then that's a little bit better there. Then I don't have to go as far away. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to take this, make sure that the empty is in the very center. I'm going to disable the Z location, or just lock that. And that way when I grab this, it doesn't go up or down. It just stays on the ground floor, which is what I want. Okay, so back in top mode, we can just see what that looks like, and I can come from any angle here, which is really cool. Let's just, I'm going to adjust this here, I think. Because I think that's going to be good. We can turn this back on in the rendered mode. Yeah, there we go. So that it doesn't have to travel all that far. Perfect, I like this. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and zero this out again. And we can do our animation, why not? So in here, I'm going to right click on the X, do insert single keyframe, because I don't want any keyframes anywhere else. Just on that. And then I think I'm going to do 40 frames, 40 or 50, we'll see. And then we'll just drag this until it's all out like that. Let's see, was that -24? We'll just say -25, that'll be close enough. Right click, insert single keyframe there, and let's just zoom in here. We can end this at 40 for now, and then we can just see what that looks like. Now, it does animate on a curve, but I think I like that. If you don't want it to animate on a curve, press A and then T, and then choose linear. Right now, by default, it's Bezier, which is just like an S-curve. Okay, so now we have our animation like this. Let's go ahead and set up our camera now. So select our camera. Let's change this to orthographic. And then if we view, align view, and then center view to camera, and then Control-Alt-0 to get the camera right in the center there. But the orthographic scale should be 10. And that's because we have the mesh at a size of 10 meters by 10 meters. What you can do is just plug this in, again, Shift, Alt, and click, so that you can see that we don't have the material, so we can just plug that in. There we go. And you can see, if you don't know the orthographic scale, you can just adjust this until you kind of see it gets to the edges here. And then if it's like 10.1 and you're really close, it's probably 10. If it's like 15.1, you know, just whatever it's closest to. So let's plug this back in. Then we can get our passepartout with our camera as well. Under viewport display, let's crank that up so we only see what's in the camera. And if I turn that off, now we have gray going into black. So this is our transition, but of course we want the world to be black, so we can come to world and just crank down that strength. There we go. Now we have our black and white transition. Let's save it. But I want a little bit more control before we render this out. Let's add in some control inputs. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is the radius. I could rename this to sphere size, but I think radius is pretty intuitive. So let's select our cube, which is what the geometry nodes modifier is on. Geometry nodes is a modifier, if you didn't know that, but I'm pretty sure you probably did. So this is going to adjust that, but if we do adjust it like this, then that means that at the final frame, these are all going to be not big enough to fill the screen. So we can make them bigger, of course. But then we could maybe control our fall off with this. But I think I use the map range node for that, which is down here, this 2min and 2max. Yeah, this is the one that I use for the fall off, as you can see. So if I bring this to 1 and then adjust this, that's going to be fall off, but it's actually operates very similar to the radius. But I do want it as a separate thing. So if the 2max, I'm going to bring that up. We're going to call this fall off, and then we can have that adjustment as well. So we can kind of adjust these two things in a similar fashion. And I think what we can do also is to have the number of vertices. Yeah, so this is the number of spheres. So let's take one and put it there, and take the other one and put it in the same spot, because I want to change these uniformly. So let's call this number of spheres, which I'm going to click and drag and pull that to the top here. Number of spheres we start with, and then now you can kind of see the fall off and what that looks like. And the fall off is slightly different than the radius, although again they kind of act very similarly. And basically what I'm kind of looking at here is like going to frame 39 and adjusting this to where actually going to the middle is better. But you can see our frame range is 40 here, and it's already full at 25. That is due to the number of spheres that we have here. And so we kind of have to adjust all of these together to get a good result. And then we might even need to select the empty and then just change the keyframes too, just to have that be scaling out beyond our frame range, depending on our other settings there. But that's cool. I kind of like that. And then one more option I'm going to do is to have randomize this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a switch where we can switch back and forth and say we want to randomize this or not. But first, let's get the random going here. And to do that, all we have to do is add in a random value here, right there. And then I think I put it to max because I want the maximum to be the random value, not the minimum. So when it's fully out like this, I want it to be random. But now you can see the radius is not correct, so we have to adjust the radius and the fall off all together to where it is like this. There we go. And we can change the seed to make it look different. But of course, again, you got to make sure that either your fall off or your radius is going to compensate for that. Or your keyframes, of course. Again, like this, we can bring this down to 40 again, and that seems to be okay. And I kind of like the 0 seed here. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, so now let's get a switch where we can switch between them. So let's add in, search for switch. And because we have float values here, we want to change this to a float value. And we want the random value in the true socket. So if it's true, if this switch selected is true, that means we want it to be random. And if it's not, it will be just the regular. So we'll bypass the random, put that into the false. So when it's not checked, it goes into the false. And then we can plug this into the scale. And now because it's not selected, it's going to not be random. So this is just our regular. But then if we click this one, it'll be randomized. And of course, we can just bring this to our group input here for the switch. And let's select our cube, go to modifiers, and here we go, switch. We'll call the switch random. So that'll be yes for random. And then what I did in my practice is instead of adjusting the radius compensating for the random, I actually added a multiply node and plugged it in here to have a random scale, or to multiply this for a random scale. So I'm going to take this value and plug it into the group input and then rename this to random scale. And that way we can adjust this by itself, and it will only apply when we've done the switch. And don't worry, I'm going to clean all of these nodes up here. I know it's a little bit of a mess, but for now, basically what we're doing is this randomized scale will compensate so we don't have to actually change these. So if we uncheck random and then get the kind of the look that we wanted again here. Okay, so something like that. And then when we click random, now we can just adjust the random scale on its own. And then if we uncheck it, we still have our original radius and fall off there. Now I could also probably add a map range node down here. Actually instead of the multiply, but this is how I had it when I practiced, so I'm just kind of showing you how I did it. So let's save it. And before I start generating my custom transitions, which I think I'll do 2 or 3 of them, let's clean this up. So hover over your geometry nodes, control space to make this bigger. I just want to clean this up a little bit so that we can see what everything is a little bit more clearly, plus kind of group things to where they make sense. These here, they've changed this. It used to be Control J, but now it's Shift P, I think. So Shift P for parent. So that's one group. This over here is going to be another group, Shift P, and then these are also going to be in a group here, like this. Okay, so you can kind of start to see what's happening here. I'm going to shift and right click to combine those. So this is just one until it's here. Click that one, G to grab, and I'm going to pull that in here so that it sticks within this little frame. You can kind of do the same thing here with this, and pull that down here. Same thing with this, just kind of so we can see where each of these are going a little bit easier. Okay, so we'll do something like that. And then this one, I'm going to title that, going to the node label, proximity. And this one here, I think if I click on it and I press F2, I can change it. Yes. This will be the scale, random, and fall off. And then this one will be grid and spheres. Okay, and I'm going to shift select just these frames here, and then over here in the node where it says properties label size, I can actually pull this up, but if I hold down Alt, it will actually do that for every one of them. So starting at 20, Alt, and then click, and then they all are scaled. I think I'm going to do 30 instead of 20, just so I can see it a little bit better. And this is not perfect, but I actually think this helps with cleaning it up, making it look nice, and also seeing what nodes do what. and you can kind of assess what is happening a lot better and the calculations and see what our inputs are doing and, with the switch and all of that good stuff. Okay, let's save it. And now let's go back to previous and generate some of our transitions. And I think this transition right here that we have is perfect for the first one. So we're just going to go ahead and render this one out. Going to the render tab here, and let's adjust our timeline accordingly. You can actually go to view and then frame scene range, which is easier that way. Go to the beginning here and press F12, and it should be black, but just in case, I want to make sure my output and color management are correct. So this is correct. We changed that earlier. I do have my videos being recorded, at least with OBS, as 23.98. So I guess I'll just change that there. // here, and let's open up the folder. Just going to create a new image sequence folder where all of our image sequences are going to go. This is just my workflow. You can do whatever. And file extensions are checked. I'm going to change this to JPEG at 100%. Uncheck overwrite. Post-processing, okay, uncheck compositing and sequencer because we're not using those. This will force it to use our camera. And so we just need to make sure our camera is aligned correctly, and we did that earlier. And so yeah, this looks correct. Just do a couple of these here. And another thing you can do is split this area, and then with this one we go to 3D viewport and to rendered mode and turn off the overlays and press 0 to go into camera. So just make sure that these match over here. There we go, they should match. Just do that for a couple of them. Oh, and this one doesn't even start until frame 9. So I'm going to start it on frame 8. So the start is going to be 8. And save it, and I think we are good to go. So Control F12 to render this out into an image sequence. And here is our image sequence. Okay, and the next one I want to do, we can collapse that for now, is the random. Here we can just click random, and then we have something that looks like that. Now, I could mess with the size, but I actually like this. Looks pretty cool. So let's go ahead and do that. For this one, though, you can see we might need to back up just one there. And then it does end here at frame 35. So I'm going to select my empty and just move this over just ever so slightly so that on 39 there's still a little bit something left, and then on 40 there's nothing. Just so we're using all of our frame range. Go back to the beginning here, go to rendering, and just F12 to make sure on a couple of different frames, just to make sure we can see everything, and we can. So let's render that one out. And you see it doesn't do anything, and that's because I did not change our output directory. And that is exactly why I don't ever check overwrite for the first time, because if I clicked overwrite, then everything would have been overwritten that we already just did. So, and it's not a big deal, these are not very long image sequence, but if you have a long image sequence, then that's going to be very tedious. So I'm just going to copy this and make a new one, and then do random. Same thing here, random underscore. And the underscore is just to separate it from the final frames that are added onto it. Okay, and now we can F12, or Control F12, and then render that out. And I want to do one more, and this time I think what I want to do is change the empty animation. But I do like to work non-destructively. So what I think I'm going to do is add in another empty sphere, and then in our geometry nodes, change this one to empty 1. And we can just hide this one for now. And we're going to put a different animation. I want it to move up. So if we go up, which is actually the Y in this case, And I want to keep this, but it looks like bubbles going up, so I like that. And actually, let's go into camera. We pretty much have everything ready. GY. Yeah, I like that. That's kind of cool. You can also go down, but in the video sequence editor, we can reverse that anyway. I guess I'm going to go to frame 1 and on the Y, insert single keyframe, and then we'll just do 40 for now. And just go up until that's all finished there. 25, single keyframe. And the reason we have to adjust the keyframes is, again, because the grid is bigger than our camera, so it starts before and ends after. But that's okay. So 7, I think we can keep that as the starting point. Let's check. Oh, actually, we can use 9 as the starting point. The fewer frames we have to render, the better. Except for, that's not entirely true. This is going to be too fast. We'll just take this and we'll move that like before. There we go. Yep, perfect. Okay, let's save it. All right, and one quick thing here that I just thought of is that because we have 2 different animations, one swiping from the side and one swiping up, we can actually just switch those. Now, we could use a switch like we did before, but there's an easier way. If we just come here and take this empty socket here, this object socket, and plug it into the input, now we can choose which empty we want to control everything with. And then all we have to do is come in here and name our empties. So this would be swipe side, and this will be swipe up. So coming back to our modifiers, we can choose either swipe up or swipe side. And it automatically works just like that. And let's clean this up a bit here. All right, and let's go ahead and rename that as well. So this object, this will be swipe direction. Okay, and this is our final geometry nodes setup here with our added swipe direction. Make sure it's rendering appropriately here. And it is. Oh, but we need to change our directory. I think I can just paste and then random up. Beginning, save, Control F12. All right, so I just downloaded some videos from Pixabay again, and just to give a shout out to them, we've got this one, which is from Matthias. I'm not even going to pronounce the last name, but you can read it there. And then we've got the waterfall one here, MicPix22, and the baby duck, Engen here. I'm not going to pronounce the last name either, so sorry about that. But thank you all for your videos. So let's add in our image sequences. Okay, let's do the regular wipe here first. I have it sorted by date modified, just going to sort it by the name from low to high, and just A, and add image strip. Put this up here, and right here, let's see, I'm going to snap it to the end here. Then I'm just going to snap this one here. Hide this, select this one, modifiers, add strip modifier mask. That's going to be a strip mask called custom sphere wipe. And then we do this, and it doesn't work. And why is that not working? Oh, it's because we have to actually put it, so the transition, if we unhide this, is going from black to white, which means it's going from invisible to visible. So it's visible until it hits our mask, and then all of a sudden it's invisible. So the easiest way to fix this actually is really simple. Just come up to the strip tab, go to video, and click reverse frames. And then you have to refresh, and now it will start with white and then go to black. And I'm just now noticing that we have these tiny little dots, so it means we didn't scale our spheres up enough. But for this purposes of this tutorial, it's fine. So let's just hide that again and then see what we have. Okay, so then we got our transition to the duck, the baby duck. So cute. And then I'm just going to slide this a little bit more so that we can kind of see more of the motion before we add another transition. So let's add in the next one, the random one now. And same thing with this one, we're going to have to reverse those frames. And then we have that transition there. And actually, you know, I have 3 transitions, which means I need to have 4 videos, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to replace this one. What I'm going to do is instead, we'll just delete this. I'm going to bring this one on top and then add in random up here and snap it there. And now, since this one is on top, we do want it to start invisible. So it can be the same. It can go from black to white like this. So this is going to transition in and up like that. So let's hide this and get our modifier, mask, and choose the random up and see what we have. We'll just use these 2 transitions. So we start with our yaks, then we go to the baby duck, and then we go to our waterfall with our custom built transitions. And that is how you do that. So from our transitions, stay tuned and you will see me in the next one.